Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a corner of Reddit that challenges one of the most fundamental assumptions we all have. What if being born isn't actually a gift? We're going deep inside r/antinatalism to really understand the philosophy, the personal frustrations, and the powerful stories that are driving this whole conversation. So let's kick things off right where this whole discussion started, with a post simply titled, "Way Too Aware for My Age." I mean, that phrase alone really captures this feeling of being burdened by what you know, and it's the spark for a really raw and revealing thread. This post isn't just some random rant online. It's actually our way into the first major theme we're going to talk about, a very specific kind of generational complaint that really sets the stage for a much, much bigger philosophy. The original poster just lays out this feeling of resentment, right? It's aimed squarely at a generation they see as choosing good vibes in the moment over, actual long-term planning and leaving their kids to deal with the consequences. And you can tell this feeling really, really hits home for a lot of people in the community. And just like that, this very personal complaint plugs right into the central debate that really defines what antinatalism is all about. Because at its core, antinatalism is this philosophical idea that says it's actually morally wrong to create new life. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. The community takes this common accusation that we've all heard, that choosing not to have kids is selfish, and they flip it completely on its head. From their point of view, the most selfish thing you can do is bring someone into the world without their consent, because you're guaranteeing they will experience suffering. And as you read through the comments, you just feel this deep, deep skepticism towards all the outside pressures to have kids. People are pointing out that this huge life decision is so often based on pressure from family or religion or just because it's, the done thing, rather than on any real critical thinking. Okay, so we've talked about the big abstract ideas, but now we're going to get into the real emotional heart of the movement. See, for so many people here, this isn't just some philosophical game. It is rooted in their own deeply personal experiences with pain. I mean, look at this comment. Traumatic childhood gang. It's just 3 words, but wow, it says so much. It's like a shorthand that points to this shared history of trauma that shapes how a lot of these users see the world. For them, the risk of suffering isn't some abstract idea. It's something they've already lived through. And you see this exact sentiment over and over again in the thread. This core belief that their own suffering is proof that their parents made a mistake, ethically speaking. And it's a conclusion many of them came to when they were incredibly young. This comment just brilliantly sums up how that personal pain gets transformed into a wider philosophy. The logic is pretty direct. If my life has been filled with suffering, then forcing life on someone else just feels morally wrong. But what happens when a philosophy like this slams into the messy reality of everyday life, or into people who completely disagree? Well, this community is definitely not a monolith, and you can see their ideas getting tested in real time. You can feel that tension right here in the thread. An outsider, or a natalist as they call them, shows up and challenges their ideas, and it sparks a debate inside the community itself. Should this be a safe space, an echo chamber, or should they be open to arguing with people who think they're wrong? And this is a really, really important point. A moderator has to step in to clear up a common and dangerous misconception. They make it crystal clear. This philosophy is about preventing new births. It is an ethical argument about procreation, not a call for people who are already here to harm themselves. And that internal debate gets captured perfectly in one user's story, where his own antinatalist beliefs get put to the ultimate test. I mean, it's one thing to believe something in theory. It's a whole other thing when you're faced with an unplanned pregnancy with a partner you've been with for a decade. So, of course, someone else immediately asks the obvious question. They want to know, wait a minute, if you both had similar views, what happened? Why did she change her mind? It's a huge, life-changing decision. And his answer just lays out this powerful conflict between a rational philosophy and this deeply felt biological reality. He says his partner gets all the logical arguments against it, she sees the problems in the world, but now that it's real, there's this overwhelming biological, emotional pull, and he decides the only thing he can do is approach it with empathy and take responsibility. All right, so let's zoom out. How do all of these personal stories and philosophical debates scale up into this final layer, which is basically a full-blown critique of the modern world? For a lot of people in this community, it's not just about their own suffering, it's about the state of humanity itself. there's this wave of pessimism that just runs through the entire conversation. It's this belief that older generations had a sense of hope, of optimism, that just feels impossible to find now. And if the future looks that bleak, why would you pass that on to a new generation? And the reasons they list for this pessimism are all over the map. You've got economic anxiety, disgust with politics, and these deep ethical worries about everything from capitalism to our food supply. They argue that the internet just constantly proves to them day in and day out that the world is fundamentally broken. And even when someone brings up a potential solution, like a birth strike to shake up the system, it's met with this really deep cynicism. There's this feeling that the powers that be are so entrenched that they would just find new ways to exploit people instead of ever actually changing. So why does any of this matter? What's the point? Well, for many, it's about forcing awareness. Like this user talking about factory farming. They're not saying no one should ever have kids. They're saying, I just want people to make that choice with their eyes wide open, fully aware of the hidden suffering that props up our way of life. And this entire conversation really builds to this one final, incredibly profound and challenging question that gets right to the heart of antinatalism. Is a world with no suffering because there's no life actually better than a world with both joy and pain? That's the question at the very core of this entire worldview.